It was my daughter's birthday, and I arrived early at her house, carrying her favorite cake. I knocked on the door with a smile, excited to see her face light up the way it did when she was little. But when the door opened, her eyes were full of irritation, as if she didn't even want to see me. "Oh, it's you, Mom?" she said flatly, not even looking me in the eye. Before I go on, make sure to follow the channel and tell me in the comments where you're listening from. My name is Olivia Mitchell, and I'm 74 years old. It warms my heart to know how far these stories travel. Even now, I can still remember the scent of almonds and chocolate from that French cake Elena loved. It was her 43rd birthday, and I had spent 3 months of my pension savings just to buy that exquisite French cake she loved so much. I paid $880 money I really didn't have, but I didn't mind spending it if it meant seeing her smile. The taxi dropped me off in front of the mansion I had helped her buy 5 years earlier, a 3-story house in the most luxurious area of Santa Barbara, complete with an infinity pool overlooking the ocean. I had contributed $90,000 to it, savings from 38 years of teaching at a local college, plus tutoring and weekend jobs. I adjusted my turquoise dress, which I had bought especially for the occasion, and held the cake carefully in one hand and a small silver gift box in the other. Inside was a pearl necklace that had belonged to my mother. 3 generations of strong women, I thought, a meaningful gift to pass down. I stepped inside, balancing the cake and the small gift box, already feeling like I didn't belong in that house. No hug, no kiss. I felt like a delivery person. "Happy birthday, sweetheart," I said, trying to keep my voice cheerful. "I brought your favorite cake and a special gift." Elena sighed, as if my presence was a burden she had to endure. "Just put it on the kitchen counter. I have to finish this call." I walked alone to the marble-tiled kitchen part of the renovation I had paid for and gently set the cake on the counter. Through the window, I could see the 11-year-old twins swimming with their instructor. Neither of them noticed me. I stood there, listening to the hollow silence of the house, feeling like an intruder in a place where I no longer belonged. 15 minutes later, Elena came into the kitchen. She looked flawless as always, perfectly dyed hair, subtle makeup, glossy nails. All of it funded by the loan I had given her 8 years ago to open her beauty clinic, $170,000 I secured by mortgaging my own condo, a loan that had never been repaid. She opened the fridge, pulled out a sparkling water bottle, and asked, "So, Mom, are you just dropping off the cake, or are you staying for dinner?" Her cold tone cut through me. I swallowed my disappointment. I thought we could have dinner together. It's been 2 months since we've seen each other. She shrugged, eyes still glued to her screen. "Actually, I already have plans. Marcelo's taking me to La Marais, just the 2 of us." Marcelo, her 3rd husband, was a shady investor who always needed money urgently for projects that never existed. The last time, it was $3,000, which I had taken from the money meant for my medication. "I understand," I said, trying to keep my composure. "Maybe we can have lunch tomorrow, then?" Elena rolled her eyes, then finally looked at me directly. Her face tightened as if she was about to say something she'd been holding in for a long time. "Mom, we need to talk." She gestured toward the stools around the kitchen island. I sat down, my heart sinking. I knew that tone. She had used it since she was little, right before saying something that would hurt me. "I've been thinking a lot about my birthday, about my life, and about what really makes me happy." I nodded, forcing a smile. "Of course, sweetheart. Tell me, maybe I can help." She set her glass down and stared straight at me. That look made my blood run cold. It wasn't love or anger, it was disdain. "What I want most for my birthday," she said slowly, articulating each word, "is for you to disappear from my life. It'd be even better if you were dead." The world stopped. The air vanished from the room. I tried to speak, but my throat tightened. "What?" I whispered. "You heard me," she said coolly. "I'm tired of you. The constant calls, the surprise visits, your outdated advice, and your pathetic need for attention." My hands trembled. 74 years of life, 43 years of motherhood, and I had never imagined hearing such words from my own daughter. "Elena," I said through tears, "I'm your mother. I gave up everything for you." "Yes," she snapped, standing up. "And that's exactly why I can't breathe. I need space, freedom. I need to live my own life without you interfering." I looked at the birthday cake, the candles still in their box. Everything I'd imagined, the hugs, the laughter, the memories vanished. "But Elena, I just want to be close to you, to be part of your life." "And that's the problem," she said, folding her arms. "Me being your whole world is too heavy. Take care of yourself, and leave me alone." I stood up, my legs shaking so badly I could barely stay upright. I grabbed my purse and the small gift box with the pearl necklace. I left the cake behind, hoping at least the kids would enjoy it. "I can't believe you'd say this after everything I've done for you," she smirked. "Everything you've done was just to feel needed, to control my life. But I'm not a child anymore." I walked toward the door, each step feeling like it took years off my life. Before leaving, I turned back. There was no regret in her eyes, only impatience for me to disappear. "Happy birthday, Elena," I whispered, closing the door behind me. She didn't know that in that moment, she awakened a fire inside me that had slept for decades, not a fire of destruction, but of rebirth. The taxi dropped me off in front of my small 2-bedroom apartment downtown, where I had lived for 15 years since selling our old home after my husband died. I stumbled inside, let my purse fall to the floor, and collapsed onto the old sofa, the same one where I used to cradle Elena as a child, tell her bedtime stories, and wipe away her tears after every heartbreak. Her words echoed in my head like a cruel refrain. "I wish you were dead. My daughter had wished me dead as a birthday gift." The pain was physical, pressing on my chest until I could barely breathe. I stayed up all night, replaying every sacrifice, every dollar I had ever spent on her over 43 years. When Elena was 5 and diagnosed with severe asthma, I worked night shifts to afford treatments the insurance wouldn't cover, about $900, by selling my wedding jewelry. When she was 16 and wanted to join a student exchange program in France, I mortgaged my condo to pay $12,000 for it. "Thank you, Mom," she had said, hugging me tight at the airport. "You're the best mom in the world." Those words now felt like they belonged to another lifetime. In college, she changed majors 3 times, and I kept paying tuition without a single complaint, about $23,000 from tutoring and weekend work. When she married her first husband, she had a grand wedding with 300 guests at the most luxurious hotel in the city, and I paid for it all, $20,000 for the dress, imported flowers, orchestra, and banquet. 2 years later, she divorced, remarried, and that wedding was even more expensive and just as short-lived. Then came Marcelo, the 3-story mansion, the beauty clinic, the luxury car I helped buy with $11,000 when the old one broke down, and the bilingual school for the twins, $2,500 per semester. The next morning, I opened the old box where I kept every receipt, invoice, and contract, not because I ever doubted her, but out of the cautious habit of a math teacher. Sitting at the kitchen table with a cup of cold tea, I wrote down every payment, every date, every reason. The total left me stunned. Over $240,000 I had spent for my daughter's happiness over 43 years. And all of it led to this, to hearing her say the thing she wanted most was for me to die. As I stared at the numbers, something strange happened. The sharp pain that had been tearing through me all night began to change into something else. Not quite anger, though there was plenty of that, but a crystal clear clarity I had never felt before. I realized that for decades I had been manipulated by someone who saw my love as a tool, not as a sacred bond. If I had spent those $240,000 on myself, to travel, to study more, to buy a better home, to take care of my health, to plan a comfortable retirement, my life would have been completely different. I wouldn't be sitting in this small apartment, counting every dollar of my pension and postponing medical treatments just to keep helping a daughter who once wished me dead. At 6 a.m. the next morning, I did something I had never done before. I took my phone and blocked Elena's number. Then I blocked Marcelo's, and then every number connected to their family. A small act, but symbolically powerful. It was my first step towards self-preservation after more than 40 years of living for someone else. I took a long shower, put on my best outfit, a beige suit I rarely wore because I didn't want to pay for dry cleaning, and stepped outside with a clear purpose, one that had nothing to do with my daughter. My first stop was the bank, the same one where Elena and I shared an emergency joint account. I had been depositing money there regularly, just in case she ever needed it. That account currently held about $9,000. "Good morning, Mrs. Mitchell," greeted Mr. Henderson, the bank manager who had known me for years. "How can I help you today?" "I'd like to close the joint account number 4015267891, I replied, my voice calm even to my own surprise. "Are you sure? There's a considerable balance in there," he said, glancing at his screen. "Absolutely," I signed the forms firmly. "Please transfer the entire amount into my personal account." Watching those $9,000 return to me gave me a strange sense of power, a power I hadn't felt in decades. But this was just the beginning. My next stop was the mortgage finance office. When Elena and Marcelo bought their oceanfront mansion, I paid the down payment and co-signed the loan. My name was also placed on the deed as a partial owner, which meant I had legal standing if the payments stopped. The loan officer, Mrs. Simmons, smiled as I entered. "Mrs. Olivia, what brings you in today?" "I'd like to review the terms of the mortgage where I'm listed as guarantor," I said. "I need to understand exactly what my rights and obligations are." While she searched for the documents, I remembered the day I'd signed those papers. Elena had hugged me tightly, tears in her eyes. "Thank you, Mom. You're my guardian angel. I love you so much." Marcelo had thanked me profusely too, promising they'd never miss a single payment. "Here's the file," Mrs. Simmons said, placing a thick folder in front of me. "Because you're a co-signer and listed on the deed, you have options if the primary borrowers default, including legal steps to protect your ownership interest." "Exactly," I said, carefully examining each page. "What steps would I need to take if I decided to exercise that right?" "You'd need to demonstrate that there's a risk of default or that they've already fallen behind on payments," she explained. What Mrs. Simmons didn't know, and what Elena had inadvertently revealed to me the week before, was that Marcelo had recently lost a significant amount of money in a failed investment, and they had missed their latest mortgage payment. She had mentioned it casually, probably expecting me to offer help again. "Perfect," I murmured, collecting copies of all the important documents. "And if I want to begin that process?" "I can schedule a meeting with our legal department," she offered. "Please do," I replied. When I left the office, I felt lighter, almost as if I were floating above the hot city pavement. For 43 years, I had lived for Elena, sacrificing my dreams, money, time, and health, all for one thing: a daughter who wished me dead. My next stop was somewhere I hadn't been in years, a travel agency called New Horizons, specializing in trips for seniors looking for a fresh start. I had kept one of their brochures in my drawer for years, secretly dreaming of possibilities that always seemed out of reach. "Good afternoon," a young travel consultant greeted me with a friendly smile. "How can I help you today?" "I saw your company's program about retirees starting over abroad," I said, taking a seat. "I'd like to learn more about how a 74-year-old woman can begin a new life in Spain." The days that followed were a mix of pain, determination, and something I hadn't felt in years: hope. It was as if I had finally awakened from a long sleep in which my only purpose had been to please my daughter. Now, I was finally beginning to live for myself. On Tuesday, my phone rang nonstop. Elena was calling. I ignored it. She called 5 more times and left a series of messages. "Mom, I need to talk to you." "Mom, are you okay? Why aren't you answering?" "Mom, the twins have a school performance on Thursday. Can you watch them for me?" "Mom." I'm starting to worry. How ironic. The woman who once wished her mother dead was now restless just because she couldn't reach me, not out of love, but because she needed something. On Wednesday morning, my dear neighbor Doris, who had witnessed every sacrifice I'd ever made for Elena, stopped by. "Olivia," she said, settling into my living room with a cup of coffee, "you look different. Is something going on?" I told her everything. Every cruel word from the birthday conversation, every detail of my new plan. Doris was silent for a long moment, her eyes slowly filling with tears. "Oh, Olivia," she whispered when I finished. "I can't believe Elena said that after all you've done for her." "The worst part," I said softly, "is that she said it like it was nothing, as if I were an old piece of furniture she needed to throw away." "So, you're really moving to Spain?" "Yes," I said firmly. "I already bought the ticket. I'm leaving next week." Doris squeezed my hand gently. "You know I support you completely, right? What Elena did is unforgivable. I need you to help me with one more thing." I lowered my voice. "Something special." I explained the entire plan. I wanted Elena to believe I had vanished without a trace, at least for a while. Doris would be the one to discover my empty apartment and the farewell letter I left behind. "Perfect," Doris said with a conspiratorial smile. "That ungrateful girl will finally understand what it means to lose her mother. I'll help you. Honestly, this might be exactly the shock she needs." That night, I wrote the most important letter of my life. I wrote and deleted, rewrote and edited, weighing every word to make sure it conveyed exactly what needed to be said. "My dear daughter," I began, "you once said that the birthday gift you wanted most was for me to disappear from your life, and I've decided to grant that wish. By the time you read this, I'll be gone, starting the life I should have lived decades ago instead of sacrificing everything for you." I wrote for hours, listing every dollar, every sacrifice, every missed opportunity I'd given up for her. But it wasn't a letter of resentment, it was one of awakening. I wanted her to understand what she had lost. "Attached to this letter," I continued, "are all the legal documents I've signed this week. The new will, the cancellation of your supplemental health insurance that I've been paying, the formal notice that as guarantor of your home, I am exercising my legal rights due to your recent financial instability, and the termination of all financial support from me." The letter was 18 pages long, detailing every change that would now unfold in her life since I was gone, just as she wished. "Your life will be lighter without me," I ended, "but certainly more expensive. I hope it's worth it." On Thursday, while I was packing 2 suitcases with the most important things I owned, I received another call from Elena. I still didn't answer. She called 4 more times, her voice growing increasingly panicked in each voicemail. "Mom, please call me back. Something's wrong. The bank scheduled an urgent meeting about our loan. I need you." So, it had begun. The bank had contacted her about my request to review the mortgage contract. Reality was catching up. Friday morning, Marcelo showed up at my door. He looked exhausted and desperate, dark circles under his eyes. Unshaven, nothing like the confident man I once knew. "Olivia," Marcelo began, his voice pleading, "Elena told me what happened between you two. I know what she said was awful, unforgivable, even, but please, don't do this to our family." "Do what exactly?" I asked, pretending to be puzzled. "The bank said, you're moving forward with the process to reclaim the house because we missed a mortgage payment. Please, Olivia, it's only been a month. I had some investment setbacks, but I'll fix everything, I promise." How interesting. When Elena wanted to cut ties, I was just a burden. But now that they realized I held the financial strings that kept their lavish life together, suddenly I was important again. "Marcelo," I said calmly, "your wife made it very clear. My presence is a burden she doesn't want to bear. I'm simply respecting her wishes." "But Olivia, you know how Elena is. She loses control when she's angry. She didn't mean it." "Didn't she? She seemed quite sincere when she said her greatest birthday gift would be my death." Marcelo looked down. There was no defense for the indefensible. "Please," he begged, "give me a chance to fix this. I'll talk to Elena. I'll make her understand." "It's too late," I said, slowly closing the door. "Give my love to the kids." Saturday was my last day in this city, the place where I had spent my entire life. I walked through the landmarks of my past, the university where I taught for 38 years, the park where I used to take Elena to play, the church where I married her father. It was a quiet farewell to a life lived entirely for others. On Sunday, I would begin a new one, my own. That morning, Doris knocked on my door, carrying hot coffee and a mischievous grin that lifted my spirits. Ready for the great escape? She teased. More than ready, I said, pulling my 2 suitcases to the door. You have the spare keys to my apartment? Right here, Doris said, holding up the keys I'd given her the night before. And I have the letter for Elena and all the documents you wanted me to deliver. We had planned everything carefully. Doris would wait until Tuesday to go to Elena's house, pretending to discover my empty apartment and worry because I had disappeared. Remember, I said as we waited for the taxi, you have to look genuinely anxious. Say you tried calling me for 2 days. Got no answer. Then used the spare key and found the apartment empty with the letter. Don't worry, Doris smiled slyly. I taught drama for 20 years. This will be the performance of a lifetime. The taxi arrived right on time. As the driver carried out my luggage, I looked back at my apartment one last time. I'd lived there for 15 years, yet oddly, I felt no regret. It was as if I had finally unlocked the prison I'd built for myself. To the airport? The driver asked. That's right, I replied, feeling those 2 words open the door to a new life. The flight to Barcelona was long but peaceful. No one could call to ask for money or favors. The feeling of freedom was overwhelming, something I hadn't experienced since becoming a mother. During the nearly 12-hour flight, I wrote down everything that had happened over the past week, every detail, every emotion, every decision that had brought me to this moment, suspended between a lifetime of sacrifice and a future of self-discovery. For the first time in 43 years, I wrote, I am doing something just for myself, not to please Elena. It's terrifying and liberating all at once. When I landed in Barcelona on Monday morning, a young man from the travel company was waiting at the airport holding a sign with my name on it. His name was Miguel, a friendly man with a clear Catalan accent. Mrs. Olivia, he said with a smile. Welcome to Spain. I hope you're ready for your new chapter. More than ready, I replied, and my smile was completely genuine. Miguel took me to a small but charming apartment in the Gothic Quarter, rented by the agency for a month while I decided whether I wanted to stay permanently. It was on the 3rd floor of a century-old building, with windows overlooking a leafy plaza and balconies draped with flowers. Here's everything you'll need about the city, Miguel said, handing me a thick folder. A list of restaurants, cultural activities, expat clubs, Catalan language classes, and emergency contacts. I've also scheduled your meeting with a financial advisor for Wednesday. That afternoon, after a short rest, I did something I hadn't done in years. I took a walk with no destination, no watch, no obligations, no one to take care of. I wandered through narrow cobblestone streets, admiring the medieval architecture, the cozy cafes on every corner, the artisan shops, until I stopped at a plaza, ordered a coffee with milk and a plate of pastries. I ate slowly, savoring each bite, watching pigeons, tourists, and locals pass by. Inside me rose a strange feeling, not sadness, not guilt, but peace. When I returned to the apartment later that afternoon, I did some quick math, calculating how much I had spent on Elena in the past 5 years. The down payment for the house, the beauty clinic expenses, the luxury car, the twins' school tuition, and countless emergencies. At least $120,000 in total. That money could have taken me around the world, allowed me to live comfortably, to fulfill dreams I'd postponed all my life. Instead, I had poured it all into a daughter who saw her mother's love as a burden and her presence as an inconvenience. It was 8 p.m. in Barcelona, 11 a.m. in Santa Barbara. Doris was probably on her way to Elena's house with the fateful letter. I sat on the small balcony, poured myself a glass of red wine, and waited. I knew that within a few hours, my phone would start ringing nonstop. That would be the moment Elena finally understood what it meant to lose her mother. At midnight, the phone began ringing insistently. It was Elena. I let it ring, then silenced it. A moment later, it rang again and again. On the 5th call, I answered. "Mom," she cried hysterically. "Where are you? Doris came over with your letter. She said you disappeared. What's going on?" "Hello, Elena," I said calmly, looking out at the sparkling lights of the old city. "Did you read the letter?" "I did," Are you insane? How could you do this to us? Where are you? I'm exactly where I need to be, far away from you, just like you wanted. But I didn't mean it. I was angry. I just said that in the moment. Just as I expected, the same old tactic. Minimize her cruelty, twist it so I'd feel guilty for reacting. Oh, you didn't mean it? When you said your greatest birthday gift would be for me to die? I asked, because you looked very sincere at the time. I was just stressed. Marcelo lost money in an investment, the kids are having trouble at school, the beauty clinic is struggling. I shouldn't have taken it out on you. You're right, I said. You shouldn't have. But you did, and words like that can't be taken back. Mom, please come home. We need you. I need you. How interesting. Now she needed me. After reading the letter, realizing all her financial benefits were gone, realizing she might lose her house, that she'd have to pay her own insurance, hire her own babysitter. Do you need me, or my money? I asked bluntly. There was a long silence on the other end. I need you, she whispered, but her voice wavered. Elena, for 43 years I lived for you. I gave up my dreams, my money, my time, every opportunity. And when I finally needed your love, you told me you wished I were dead. I took a deep breath. Those words shattered my heart forever. I'm sorry, Mom. I really am. Sorry isn't enough, Elena. The damage is done. And you know what? Maybe that sentence was the best thing you ever said to me because it opened my eyes. It showed me that for my entire life, I've been living the wrong way. What do you mean? She asked, her voice trembling. I mean that I'm living for myself, and it feels wonderful. Where are you? Please tell me, she begged between sobs. The kids keep asking about Grandma. They don't understand why you're gone. How ironic. When I was always available, no one needed me. But now that I was gone, my absence finally had meaning. The kids will be fine, I said, gazing up at the starry Barcelona sky. They'll learn that every action has consequences and that cruel words can destroy relationships forever. Mom, please, you can't just disappear like this. What if something happens to you? What if you get sick? How will we know? Now my daughter was suddenly worried about my health. How convenient. Over the past 3 years, I had been hospitalized twice for high blood pressure. Did she visit me even once? Not once. You always had something more important to do, I said slowly. That's not true, she protested weakly. Oh, it is. The first time I called from the emergency room, you said you couldn't come because you had a friend's party. The second time, you said it was Marcelo's birthday, and you were hosting dinner for him. Silence. I knew she remembered both times. I thought it wasn't serious, she murmured. Of course not, because my health never mattered to you, but my checks always did. It's not about the money, Elena shouted. It's about you. I miss you. Do you miss me, or do you miss having someone always there to bail you out? I hung up before she could answer. The phone kept ringing, but I silenced it completely. I needed quiet to enjoy my first night of freedom. The days that followed were a journey of discovery, not just of Barcelona, but of myself. Parts of my personality, interests, and desires that had been asleep for decades began to awaken. I realized I was fascinated by Gothic architecture and could stare at the Barcelona cathedral for hours. I discovered I had a knack for languages, and Catalan wasn't nearly as difficult as I'd thought. I rekindled my love for mathematics, the subject I had taught for years, but this time I studied it simply for pleasure. On Wednesday, I met with Mr. Ferrer, an elderly Spanish financial advisor. He helped me understand my options for long-term residency. With your current savings and pension, he said, you can live comfortably in Spain for many years. The healthcare system for retired foreigners here is excellent, and the quality of life in Barcelona is among the best. I could discuss money without worrying about saving it for one of my daughter's so-called emergencies. The relief was indescribable. You could also invest part of your funds here, Mr. Ferrer continued. The returns are steady and safe. In 5 years, you could significantly increase your assets. Increase my assets. The phrase made me smile quietly. How many times had I had the chance to do that, only to spend it all on Elena's frivolous whims instead? Is there anything else I should know? I asked. We have many clients like you, he smiled. Older people who come to Spain to start over after complicated family relationships. You're not alone. Those words warmed my heart. I wasn't the only one who had been used and abandoned by ungrateful children. There was an entire community of people who had chosen their own happiness over the endless demands of toxic relatives. On Friday, I joined a walking group for senior expats. There were 12 of us, aged between 65 and 80, all searching for adventure and new experiences. During our hike through the hills around Barcelona, I struck up a conversation with a woman named Luisa, 76, from Italy, who had moved here 3 years ago. What brought you here? She asked, as we stopped to admire the city view. A daughter who once said the best birthday gift I could give her was to die, I answered honestly. I no longer had the strength to sugarcoat the truth. Luisa's eyes widened. Really? Yes. After I paid for her house, practically raised her children, and sacrificed my retirement for her needs, she said my presence was a burden. Oh my God, Luisa sighed. And what did you do? I disappeared from her life, and now, I'm here. Luisa smiled, admiration shining in her eyes. You're brave. It took me 7 years to leave my toxic family. My son and daughter-in-law treated me like a walking ATM. We talked as we walked. Luisa told me she only decided to move to Spain after realizing her children contacted her only when they needed money for trips, new cars, or expensive hobbies. When she started setting boundaries, they accused her of being selfish and threatened to keep her from seeing her grandchildren. The first few months were hard, Luisa said as we walked down a shaded street. I felt guilty, wondering if I really was selfish, if a good mother was supposed to sacrifice herself endlessly. What changed your mind? I asked. I realized my children never once asked if I was happy, if I had enough for myself, or if those sacrifices hurt me. They only cared about what I could give them. That's not love, Olivia. That's exploitation. Her words struck deep within me. For years, I had confused emotional manipulation with maternal love, constant demands with genuine need. At the end of the walk, Luisa invited me to join a support group for older women who chose to prioritize their mental well-being instead of living under toxic family expectations. I agreed immediately. That evening, I turned my phone on. 78 missed calls and 32 messages. Most were from Elena and Marcelo, the rest from unknown numbers, probably their friends trying to track me down. I read every message in order, watching my daughter's panic unfold. The first ones were full of emotion. Mom, please come home. We need you. The kids are crying for you. But gradually, the tone shifted to panic over money. The bank called saying you requested to review the mortgage contract. They can't foreclose on us over a misunderstanding. By the fourth day, the messages turned angry. This is ridiculous, Mom. You're ruining our lives just because you're upset. Grow up and come back. Finally came desperation. I've called every hospital, police station, and all your friends. No one knows where you are. If something happens to you, I'll never forgive myself. Please, just tell me you're okay. How interesting that among dozens of messages, not a single one contained a genuine apology. Not once did she acknowledge her cruelty. Everything revolved around the consequences my disappearance had caused her. I decided to send only one reply. I'm perfectly fine and happier than ever. What you're experiencing now is simply the natural consequence of your own actions. I hope this teaches you to appreciate the people who love you before it's too late. Her reply came instantly. Mom, please, we can fix this. I promise I'll never say those awful things again. Just come home. I wrote my final message. Empty promises can't mend a broken heart. Elena, what you said that day showed me exactly how you truly see me. That truth can't be erased with a few desperate words. After sending that message, I blocked every number, hers, Marcelo's, and all the unknown ones. It was time to close that chapter of my life. The following week, I met with Mr. Ferrer again to sign the paperwork granting me permanent residency in Spain. I also arranged to transfer my entire pension here and began the process of selling my apartment in California. Are you absolutely sure about this? he asked. It's a major decision. I've never been more certain, I said, signing my name firmly. I'm making a decision based on my own happiness, not anyone else's. That afternoon, Doris called, her voice full of excitement. Olivia, you won't believe this. Elena came to my house yesterday, crying, begging me to convince you to come back. She said it was all a huge misunderstanding. What did you tell her? I told her the truth, that what she did was unforgivable, and if I were you, I'd disappear forever too. You should have seen her face. She was stunned to realize even the neighbors know how badly she's treated you. Then Doris lowered her voice. She also mentioned money. Said without you, they can't make their mortgage payments, the bank's pressuring them, Marcelo's out of funds, and the kids need things for school. I smiled. Everything was unfolding exactly as I had predicted. Elena didn't miss me as a person, she missed the funding source that made her life easy. Doris, I said, if anyone asks, especially Elena, tell them I'm gone for good, and I'm not coming back. Because in a way, that's true. The mother who sacrificed everything for her ungrateful daughter died on her birthday. I understand, Doris said softly. And you know what? That's the most beautiful kind of death you could have chosen. 3 weeks after arriving in Spain, my new life had truly begun. I enrolled in Catalan language classes 3 times a week, joined a watercolor painting group on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and discovered I had an artistic talent I never knew existed. I became part of a book club for expats in Spain that met every Sunday. My schedule was full of things I had chosen, activities that brought me joy and growth instead of obligation and guilt. But the most remarkable change came in my finances. With no more endless requests from Elena, my savings not only stabilized, they grew. The investments I made with Mr. Ferrer began yielding returns, and I could make financial plans based solely on my own needs. On Wednesday morning, as I enjoyed my coffee on the sunlit balcony, I received an international call from an unfamiliar number. I hesitated for a moment, then answered out of curiosity. Mrs. Olivia Mitchell? A woman's voice asked. Yes, that's me. Who's speaking? I'm Rachel Mendoza, a social worker with the Department of Family Services in Santa Barbara. I'm calling because we received a report concerning your well-being. My stomach dropped. A report? About what? Your daughter, Elena Mitchell, reported that you may be suffering from dementia or cognitive decline and have been making unsafe financial and personal decisions. According to her, you disappeared suddenly and are now living in unstable conditions abroad, possibly being manipulated by others. I was speechless. Elena had gone so far as to invent mental illness to undermine my decisions and force me back under her control. Miss Mendoza, I said firmly, I am completely sound of mind. I'm living in Spain by my own choice, in a comfortable apartment, with excellent health care and perfectly normal mental health. Those accusations are false. I understand, she replied gently, but we still need verification. Would you be willing to undergo a medical and psychological evaluation through the U.S. consulate in Spain? Of course, I said immediately. I'm willing to take any test necessary to prove that I am fully competent and capable of managing my own life. After confirming the appointment, I hung up, filled with anger and disbelief. Elena had crossed the final line. She had not only once wished me dead, now she was trying to destroy my reputation, to regain control over my money and my life. I immediately called my lawyer in the United States, Mr. Vargas, the one who had helped me handle all the legal matters before I left. Olivia, I'm glad you called, he said. I had quite an interesting meeting with your daughter last week. I can imagine, I replied. I just spoke with a social worker. She's claiming I have dementia. Not just that, he sighed. She's hired another lawyer to contest every document you signed before leaving, arguing that you weren't mentally fit at the time. Can she do that? She can try, but she has no case. I have recordings of all our meetings where you were completely coherent. Plus, the fact that you planned your move in detail and are living independently abroad already proves the accusations are baseless. Anything else I should know? I asked. She also tried to access your bank accounts, claiming concern for your health. and she's attempting to stop the foreclosure process, but since all documents are legitimate and she herself signed to acknowledge financial hardship, she has no legal ground. I was stunned. Elena was willing to do anything to regain control and get my money back. "Mr. Vargas," I said, "please prepare to file a defamation lawsuit. My daughter spreading false claims about my mental state is against the law." "With pleasure," he replied. "After everything you've endured, it's time she faced the consequences." 2 days later, I went to the U.S. consulate in Barcelona for the medical and psychological evaluations. The doctor, Dr. Torres, was calm and experienced. After 3 hours of thorough testing, he smiled at me. "Mrs. Mitchell," he said, "you're in perfect health and fully competent. In fact, your recent decisions show remarkable clarity and courage. Your daughter is clearly trying to manipulate the system to reclaim financial control. I'll make that very clear in my report." That afternoon, Miss Mendoza called again. "Mrs. Mitchell, we've received the report from the consulate. The conclusion is very clear: your daughter's accusations have no basis. We'll be closing the case and informing her that the claim was false." "Thank you," I said. "Will that be recorded officially?" "Yes. Her false report will be noted in our system. If she repeats this behavior, legal action will be considered." I smiled. Elena had not only failed to discredit me, but now she would also have a record labeling her as a false accuser. That night, I decided to do what I had long hesitated to do: write my entire life story, not for Elena, but for women going through the same pain. I wrote for 4 hours straight, recounting every sacrifice, every manipulation, every step I took to reclaim my dignity and freedom. I titled it "When Motherly Love Turns into Self-Destruction: A Journey of Liberation at 74. I sent it to a blog that shared stories of older women who had the courage to change their lives. A week later, I received an email from the editor. "Olivia," she wrote, "your story is powerful and deeply inspiring. We've received hundreds of comments from women who relate to your experience. Would you be willing to do an interview for our YouTube channel?" I agreed immediately. It was time to turn my experience into strength to help others break free from toxic ties. The interview was posted 2 weeks later and quickly went viral. Thousands of women shared similar stories being used, insulted, and emotionally manipulated by their adult children. The comments were filled with pain, but also solidarity. "My 37-year-old son lives in my house, doesn't pay rent, and yells at me every time I tell him to get a job," one woman wrote. "My daughter only calls when she needs money for vacations, but never visits when I'm sick," another shared. "I used to think I was the only one whose children saw me as a tool," confessed a third. But the biggest surprise came a week later. I received an email from a familiar address. It was Marcelo's. "Olivia," he wrote, "I saw your interview. I completely agree with you. What Elena said was unforgivable, and the way she treated you all these years was unacceptable. I watched her manipulate you, take advantage of you, and I was too much of a coward to speak up because both of us depended on you." He continued, "The kids miss you terribly. Elena told them you were sick and couldn't visit, but I think they deserve to know the truth when they're older. Maybe it's too late for apologies, but I want you to know that at least one person in this family recognizes everything you've sacrificed. I hope you're happy in your new life." I read the email 3 times before replying. "Marcelo, thank you for your honesty, but late apologies can't erase the pain. I hope this experience makes you a better husband and father, one who teaches his children to appreciate those who love them before it's too late." It was the first time in my life that someone in the family openly acknowledged how I had been mistreated. Though it didn't change my decision to keep my distance, his words gave me a sense of validation I had longed for years. My new life in Spain flourished more beautifully than I could have imagined. I had genuine friends who valued me for who I was, not for what I could give. I found joy, passion, peace, and financial security again. Most importantly, I regained my self-respect. 6 months later, on a bright spring morning, my phone rang. It was Doris, my dear friend and ally back in the United States. "Olivia," she said, her voice both shocked and excited, You won't believe this. Elena lost the house. I froze. Even after everything, a part of me still worried about my grandchildren. What happened? The bank foreclosed on it last week. Marcelo couldn't recover from his failed investment. They missed 3 more payments, and since you were the guarantor, the bank enforced the repossession. Is Elena okay? I asked. She came to my house yesterday, crying her eyes out. They've moved into a small apartment in the suburbs. Marcelo got a steady job at a travel agency. He's making less than before. But at least it's stable. Elena also had to return to work at her clinic, but this time not as the owner, just a regular employee. My feelings were strange. I didn't feel joy in her suffering, but rather a deep sense of justice. Elena and Marcelo were facing real consequences for their choices, with no one left to rescue them. Anything else? I asked, as Doris continued her story. Elena asked if I knew how to contact you. She said she wants to apologize sincerely, that she finally understands everything she lost when she lost you. And what did you tell her? I told her that some wounds cut too deep to ever heal, and some words can never be taken back. I also told her you're happy now, and maybe it's best for both of you if she doesn't try to reach you again. Doris was absolutely right. In the past 6 months, I had built a peace I wouldn't trade for empty promises from a daughter who only valued me when she needed something. That afternoon, I received an unexpected call from Mr. Vargas. Olivia, I have some good news, he said. The bank sold Elena's house, and since you were the guarantor, you're entitled to reclaim your initial investment of $90,000 plus interest. How much in total? About $115,000. The bank has approved the transfer. It'll be in your account next week. I could hardly believe it. Not only had I recovered my original investment, but I'd also gained roughly $25,000 money I would have lost forever if I'd kept playing the self-sacrificing mother. And one more thing, Mr. Vargas added. Your California apartment has been sold. After fees, you'll receive around $46,000. With my savings and investments in Spain, my total net worth now exceeded $200,000. At 74, I was wealthier and more secure than I'd ever been. That night, I went to my favorite restaurant in Barcelona's main square, ordered the best seafood paella and a glass of fine red wine. I raised my glass to the brave woman within me, the one strong enough to start over when it seemed everything had fallen apart. As I ate, I reflected on my journey. I had begun this path as a broken mother, humiliated by her daughter's cruel words. But now, I was an independent woman with solid finances, true friends, and a life I had always dreamed of living. The next day, I decided to do something I'd been planning for weeks: write a book. Not just my life story, but a practical guide for older women trapped in toxic family relationships. I contacted a publishing house that specialized in self-development books. The editor, a woman named Montserrat, was immediately intrigued. Olivia, she said, your story touches on something millions of women endure, but few dare to speak about: the emotional abuse that comes from grown children. It's an epidemic. I spent the next 3 months writing my book, When Love Hurts: Breaking Free from Emotional Abuse in Families After 70. It wasn't just a memoir, it also shared methods to recognize manipulation, set healthy boundaries, and find the courage to put oneself first. 8 months later, the book was published and quickly became a bestseller across Europe and the Americas. I received hundreds of letters from readers around the world, each one moving me deeply. One mother from Chile wrote, I read your book and finally realized I'm not a bad person for refusing to keep supporting my lazy 42-year-old son. Another from Portugal shared, your story helped me understand that real love doesn't mean self-destruction. After reading, I sold my big house and moved into a smaller apartment where I can live comfortably on my own. A third, from Argentina, wrote, for the first time in years, I slept peacefully. But the letter that touched me the most arrived a year after the book's release. It was from a young woman named Paula. Dear Mrs. Olivia, she wrote, I'm 32 and have a 67-year-old mother who spent her entire life sacrificing for me and my siblings. After reading your book, I realized we've been treating her exactly the way Elena treated you. Your story opened my eyes. I called my mother, apologized for taking her for granted, and told her I want to help her live for herself. Thank you for helping me understand that before it was too late. I cried as I read that letter. My pain had prevented someone else from repeating my tragedy. 2 years after moving to Spain, I received a handwritten envelope. The familiar handwriting made my heart race. When I opened it, I froze. It was from my 2 grandchildren, now 13 years old. "Dear Grandma," they wrote in their shaky handwriting, "Dad told us the truth about why you left. He said Mom said cruel things to you, and that's why you chose to start a new life. We miss you and understand why you had to go. We're proud of you for being so strong. When we're older, we hope to visit you in Spain if you'll let us." Inside the envelope were drawings they'd made of me happily walking through the streets of Barcelona. I cried for an hour, not from sadness, but from realizing that protecting my dignity had been the right choice, even if it meant distance from those I loved. I picked up my pen and wrote back, "My dear grandchildren, your words are the most beautiful gift I've received in years. I love you deeply, and always will, no matter where I am. When you're grown and able to make your own choices, the doors to my heart and home will always be open. Know that I'm living a full and happy life, surrounded by beauty and peace. Keep this love in your hearts, but also learn from this experience that words can build or destroy, and that every relationship can only last through mutual respect. I love you with all my heart." Now, 3 years after that fateful birthday, I sit on the balcony of my new apartment in Barcelona, the one I bought with my own money. Before me stretches the shimmering Mediterranean Sea as I write the final lines of my story. I am 77 years old, with more than $300,000 in assets, a best-selling book translated into 8 languages, close friends from around the world, and a peace I once thought I'd never find again. Elena once said the best birthday gift she could get was for me to disappear from her life, and I did, in the most extraordinary way possible. What she never understood was that by losing me, she didn't just lose a mother who loved her unconditionally, she lost the person who kept her financial life stable for decades. Last week, I received the first email from Elena in 3 years. "Mom," she wrote, "I just finished your book. I had no idea how much you suffered, how much you sacrificed, and how deeply I underestimated you. I'm not asking you to come back or forgive me. I just want you to know that I finally understand what you tried to teach me, even if it came through pain. I hope you're happy because you deserve it." I didn't reply. Some bridges, once burned, can never be rebuilt. But I kept her words in my heart not as a victory, but as a reminder that all pain can be transformed into wisdom. My disappearance was her gift. But this new life, this was the gift I gave myself. And it was worth every tear, every sacrifice, every painful moment that brought me here. Because sometimes, the only way to save yourself is to be brave enough to lose everything and be reborn as the person you were always meant to be. Thank you for listening until the end. Share your thoughts, and don't forget to follow the channel so you can join me and others on this journey where every story is a lesson, and every lesson brings us closer to understanding love, family, and ourselves.